But also, there's just as a little thing about centre-right of Australian politics, right? And, I certainly didn't go to uni in political science and all the rest of it, but basically, right, we obviously know team red, team blue. We obviously know the concept of left and right. But also, there's sort of subgroupings underneath all of that, right? So you could be like in the Labor Party, literally, there's the socialists that are there. There's all these subgroupings that are there. And in the same when it comes to centre-right, you could have everything from, economic populists to libertarians to, you name it, right? The thing is, Michael, the Labor Party has all of these factions, but they also live under one dome, and no one publicly is throwing each other under the bus or is freewheeling about what they think the collective should be doing. Is a fundamental design error of the centre-right that the tent might be broad, but everyone's allowed to walk in and out of it and say whatever they want.
Except for Ed Husick.
Correct. Very good point. Very good point.
Mate,
and
look,
I'm not suggesting hard caucus rules. I'm just saying,
sure.
if people think that the left of Australian politics is not as fractured as the right is, they need to understand that there are those fractions. They're just a lot more obvious to the right.
Yeah. Look, it's a great question, actually, and it goes to a lot of how modern politics works in Australia today. The Labor Party factions have been there forever. They manage those factions incredibly well. There is extraordinary discipline amongst the factions. If you cross the factions, that has enormous consequences both for your tenure within the Parliamentary Party and, just as importantly, mate, when you leave Parliament. If you've crossed the factions, if you've crossed the Parliamentary Party and you leave Parliament, then there are no jobs for you. You're an outcast.
Correct.
Whereas on our side, it's much more freewheeling. We allow people to cross the floor. We allow them to speak out. It's a much more freewheeling approach we have to politics, which has its advantages, but also has a tremendous number of disadvantages too, because then you look ill-disciplined. Whereas the Labor Party, got rid of two ministers pretty brutally. It was in the media for a while. One of them spoke out, one of them didn't. Which means that when Husick leaves Parliament, he's not going to be too popular amongst the ranks, but when Dravers leaves Parliament, he will be looked after with a High Court appointment or something. So, that describes the differences within the party. They have much more rigid discipline, and it's because they're far more brutal than we are internally.
Yeah, and this is the thing where, look, the openness and the freedom of the design, but modern politics rewards message discipline. It rewards, essentially kind of the head of the tree saying which way things are going to go. It's fascinating to watch. All right, James, the parliamentary calendar has come out, and I know that just like, a mechanic in the 1980s, you're waiting for the Samantha Fox calendar to come out, and or the easy to see one, with the monkey dressed up as the mechanic. You want the parliamentary calendar. Now, I don't know whether they send you, sort of like a centerfold of Albo, to leaning over C1, like the old street and strip ones. Yeah, anyway, okay, great. We just had an election, but you can almost count on a couple of hands how many days Parliament will sit this year.
Yeah, well, normally, prior to this government coming to rule, there was about 18 weeks of Parliament. Well, the last 3 years, that was reduced down to 15 weeks, and now we're seeing it reduced even further. And yes, you're right, the calendar only came out today. I was texted a copy from the Prime Minister's office, and I looked at it and I thought, we're not back for weeks. We're not back until the 22nd of July, which is, six odd weeks away.
Yeah.
But don't worry, I have no doubt that the Labor Party are working away behind the scenes, trying to set up all that tough legislation that they probably want to get through in the first 6 months so that people forget about it in their last 2.5 years of the term. But yeah, it is a surprise. There's a big gap. And I heard the explanation is so that Albo can do some more overseas trips, Paul.
Oh, what a surprise. Because you see, this is, but again...
Fire up the jet.
But this is the stuff, right? Yep, big win, no questions, right? But what is the problem with the big win? A little bit of hubris starts to kick in, right? So they've taken the message, Michael, inside, the DNA, the Labor Party, all that stuff that we've been talking about here, that's all garbage. Cost of living, we nailed that. We, Airbus Albo, nobody cared. Take your pick. But this stuff will come back to bite you on the bum.
Yeah, it's a long break. Actually, Paul, now that I mentioned it, now that